Throughout the centuries, humanity has been drawn to what it cannot control. Magic, in all its forms, has existed as both a tool and a temptation, a way to bend the laws of nature, to command what should never be commanded. Yet some spells were considered so dangerous, so catastrophic in their effect, that they were deliberately erased from written history. Burned manuscripts, vanished grimoires, forbidden symbols carved into stone only to be buried beneath cathedrals, all remnants of a time when words alone could alter reality. These were not harmless incantations of healing or fortune. They were instruments of chaos, and those who dared to utter them often paid the ultimate price. One of the earliest known forbidden spells dates back to ancient Egypt, hidden within a funerary text that was never meant to be read by the living. Scholars call it the spell of eternal hunger. The inscription was found on fragments of a tomb wall near Luxor, and its purpose was terrifying. It allowed a priest to bind the soul of an enemy to starvation in the afterlife. The ritual required a heart carved from animal flesh and the victim's true name written in red ochre. Once the ceremony was complete, it was said that the target would feel an endless thirst, even in death. The pharaohs eventually outlawed the practice, and priests who possessed the knowledge were executed. To this day, the few who study Egyptian sorcery claim that reciting even part of the verse causes the mouth to dry and the tongue to stiffen as though the curse itself resists resurrection. Centuries later, in the crumbling monasteries of medieval Europe, whispers spread of another lost incantation, the prayer of unbinding. It was not a prayer in the holy sense, but a reversal of divine protection. Those who performed it could supposedly strip a person of their guardian spirit, leaving their body open to possession. Monks accused of heresy were said to have used it to expose sinners to demonic influence, proving their corruption. But when entire villages fell into madness following its use, the Church ordered every written version destroyed. Legends say that a single copy still exists, hidden within the Vatican archives, sealed behind walls of stone and silence. Far to the east, in ancient China, a spell known as the Whisper of Returning was once feared among Taoist alchemists. It promised to bring back the dead, but never as they were. The spell demanded a strand of hair from the deceased, mixed with mercury and the ashes of a night-blooming flower. The one who cast it would call the soul 3 times beneath the new moon. If the spirit answered, the body would stir, but its eyes would remain black, its mind vacant. Records describe revived figures wandering for days before collapsing again, leaving behind only the faint scent of flowers. Emperor Zhao, upon learning of the ritual, ordered every scroll containing its instructions to be burned, and the alchemists who knew it were buried alive. In a remote corner of northern Africa, merchants once spoke of a spell that defied reason itself, the chain of silence. It was said to have been crafted by desert mystics who sought to command truth. When cast, the spell could silence an entire gathering, forcing everyone present to forget the words they had just spoken. The ritual required drawing a circle of iron dust and pouring one's own blood over it. Those who practiced it claimed the silence would last for generations, erasing memory itself. In modern times, linguists studying ancient desert manuscripts found entire pages deliberately scrubbed clean, as if the language had been devoured by nothingness. Villagers still speak of ruins where no birds sing and even the wind seems mute. Another of the erased spells was recorded during the fall of Constantinople in the 15th century. Known as the Invocation of Ashes, it was believed to turn an enemy's home to dust with a single breath. Sorcerers hiding among the city's refugees were said to have used it to destroy invading camps during the siege. The spell called for burning salt, sulfur, and the name of the enemy written on parchment soaked in wine. But those who performed it never survived the dawn, their lungs filled with soot, their bodies crumbling to dust from within. Chroniclers at the time declared it too dangerous to preserve, and every trace of its existence was ordered destroyed. Yet fragments of these forbidden spells continue to resurface, etched on bronze plates, carved into the walls of forgotten temples, or hidden in footnotes of old grimoires that escaped destruction. Each rediscovery seems accidental, yet too many have paid with their lives for these accidents to be coincidence. It is as if the knowledge itself resists extinction, pushing back against time, determined to be remembered by those willing to look into the darkness. Among all the forbidden spells erased from human memory, few carry the same weight of fear as the chant of the hollow name. Originating in Mesopotamia more than 4,000 years ago, this spell was said to grant its user the ability to remove someone's name from the book of life, effectively erasing them from existence. The ancient scribes who practiced this art believed that to destroy a person's name was to destroy their essence. The ritual required writing the target's name in clay mixed with oil and blood, then submerging it in running water under the light of a dying moon. The moment the clay dissolved, the victim would begin to fade from memory, as if they had never lived. Families reportedly woke up unable to remember the faces of their own children. The last known tablets referencing the chant were shattered and buried beneath temple ruins near Ur, but modern archaeologists claim that inscriptions describing the Nameless Ones still appear on unearthed walls, as if history itself tried to remember what humanity wanted to forget. In medieval Spain, a spell called the Turning of Flesh became infamous among inquisitors. It was rumored to grant a sorcerer the ability to take on the form of any living being. The process was gruesome and irreversible. The caster needed to boil a mixture of herbs, wax, and animal fat under the sound of Gregorian hymns played backward. Once the liquid cooled, it was applied to the skin, which would begin to shift and tear as bones and features changed. Those who survived the transformation were never able to return to their original form, becoming trapped between identities, half human, half creature. The Church declared this spell an abomination and wiped all texts related to it from the monastic libraries. But in remote regions of Galicia, there are still tales of shapeless wanderers who cover their faces and avoid mirrors, said to be descendants of the ones who tried to play with divine design. Another spell, older than recorded history, was whispered by shamans of Siberia and northern Mongolia. It was called the Breath of Winter, a curse meant to summon unending cold. Hunters invoked it to punish rival tribes, believing it would call the spirits of frozen storms to consume entire valleys. The ritual demanded that the sorcerers stand barefoot on snow, reciting ancient syllables until the blood in their feet froze. Those who succeeded were said to turn pale and silent, their breath forming a mist that never disappeared. Archaeologists have found burial sites of people whose bodies were preserved in perfect condition, as if frozen instantly thousands of years ago. Local elders still warn that when the temperature drops without warning, someone nearby has spoken the forbidden words again. But perhaps the most haunting of all is a lost European spell known as the Mirror of Hours. It was said to grant glimpses of one's future, but at the cost of life itself. The ritual used a bowl of water, a drop of blood, and a shard of glass. When the moon's reflection touched the water, the caster would see the face of their older self staring back. Some claimed it showed the moment of their death, others saw only endless darkness. Those who survived the vision aged overnight, as if time had taken payment in advance. Historians believe the Mirror of Hours was destroyed during the witch trials of the 17th century, yet rumors persist of secret collections in Europe where a few surviving texts remain, written in ink that fades under daylight. Every one of these spells, no matter how ancient or obscure, shared a single truth: power came at the cost of balance. The universe, indifferent and precise, never allowed something to be taken without something else being given. And though humanity may have erased these spells from parchment and stone, their echoes still linger, in superstition, in symbols, and perhaps even in the quiet moments when one feels the weight of something watching from beyond the veil of understanding. What makes these erased spells so unsettling is not only their purpose but the way they seem to reappear, as if drawn to the curiosity of humankind. No matter how many times they were destroyed, burned, or hidden, fragments always surfaced again. Inscriptions on tomb walls, verses etched into metal, or coded phrases inside religious manuscripts. It is almost as if the words themselves refused to die. Scholars who have devoted their lives to decoding these fragments often describe an unexplainable pattern. Every rediscovery coincides with moments of great human despair, war, plague, or famine. It is during these times, when hope collapses, that someone inevitably tries to reach back into the past and call upon what should never be spoken. One of the most chilling examples of this resurfacing is the spell of the open gate, a ritual believed to have originated in ancient Persia. Its purpose was to summon knowledge directly from entities that existed beyond the physical world. The ritual involved tracing a circle with salt and ash while repeating a long sequence of names that did not belong to any known language. Those who attempted it described hearing voices that were not their own and seeing patterns of light forming symbols in the air. According to historical accounts, every practitioner who completed the ceremony vanished within a year, their homes found empty, their writings burned from the inside out as if scorched by invisible fire. Centuries later, explorers in the region discovered abandoned sanctuaries where the walls were covered in burned handprints and indecipherable writing, as though the gate had been opened once more. The danger of these lost incantations lies in the same human flaw that created them, the belief that power can exist without consequence. Each spell was not just an act of defiance but a test of balance, forcing the world to correct itself after every misuse. Whether these forces are real or psychological no longer matters, because their influence continues to shape the myths and fears of humanity. Even now, in secret archives, private collections, and forgotten monasteries, there are those who search for the forbidden words again, convinced that if spoken correctly, they could control destiny itself. But history has already written the outcome. Those who chase erased knowledge do not command it, they become part of the reason it was erased in the first place. Across thousands of years, kings, scholars, and even holy men have all attempted to control what was never meant to be mastered. The spells erased from history were not forgotten by accident, they were removed because they worked. Each carried a power that demanded balance, a cost that no mortal could afford to pay. And yet, the desire for control, for forbidden knowledge, for the promise of power beyond limits, continues to draw people toward the same danger. Every civilization that has ever existed has tried to hold the unseen in its grasp, and each has learned the same lesson in the end. Power without wisdom devours the one who seeks it. Historians now believe that many of the world's great disasters may have roots in attempts to invoke these lost words again. Entire cities swallowed by storms, sudden fires that erased entire archives, and strange plagues that began without warning, all seem to follow the same patterns found in the records of those who once practiced the forbidden arts. These are not coincidences but echoes, the universe reclaiming what was stolen. In the archives of Prague, a single parchment known as the Testament of Silence describes what may have been the last recorded attempt to speak one of these spells aloud. The writer, whose name has been lost to time, warned that the air around him changed, that shadows lengthened even in daylight, and that he could hear his own heartbeat from outside his body. The text ends abruptly, the ink burned into the page, as though the words themselves resisted being written. Even in the present day, fragments of these incantations continue to surface. A chant carved into stone found beneath a collapsed temple in Turkey, a coded passage inside a private collection in France, or a sequence of letters written backward in a 15th-century Bible, all suggest that the knowledge was never fully destroyed, only scattered. Researchers who encounter these texts report the same sensations. Lights flicker, air grows colder, and time seems to distort. It is as if the very act of reading the forbidden language stirs the same energy it once commanded. Some leave their studies unfinished, while others disappear completely, their work confiscated or sealed away. The cycle continues, and the line between myth and truth grows thinner with every rediscovery. The truth is simple yet terrifying. These spells were never erased to protect knowledge, they were erased to protect life. Every generation thinks it can control the darkness better than the last, but history shows otherwise. What begins as curiosity ends in silence. What starts with power ends in disappearance. And still, somewhere, someone searches for the next fragment, convinced they will be the one to master it. Perhaps they already have. For those who seek to understand the past without awakening it, remember this: the greatest mysteries are hidden for a reason. If words can alter the course of life, then silence is the only true protection. Thank you for watching and for being part of this journey into the forgotten corners of history. If you wish to keep uncovering the world's lost secrets, make sure to subscribe and stay with us. The deeper we go, the darker it becomes, and sometimes it is the silence that speaks the loudest.